Welcome to True Assassins. I am so ready to dive into this. You know I love a good cloak and dagger tale, and today we're going deep into two of them thanks to Orlando Madsbrine's True Kill. It's like a twisted little window into power, betrayal, and let's just say some deadly creativity.
Exactly. It's amazing how these stories can just pull you in. And we're starting with The King's Shadow, set in a medieval castle, all intrigue and secrets, right? You provided material describing the king's guard, sworn to protect, suddenly discovering that the biggest threat to the throne is coming from the queen herself. It really makes you think about the weight of loyalty when it clashes head-on with justice. What happens when a protector has to defy the very system he's dedicated his life to?
It's a tough question. We're talking about a guy who lives and breathes duty, and then later on, we're going to explore Frozen Tableau. The story's about Victor, an ice sculptor. Pretty normal, right?
Well, not exactly.
Right. You shared some details about how Victor's, let's say, artistic vision went in a very dark direction. He started using his sculptures to, well, conceal his victims. We're talking about a guy who turned something beautiful into something truly terrifying.
It's a disturbing contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Beauty and horror intertwined.
Totally. Okay, so let's start by setting the scene for the King's Shadow. Think about a medieval castle. Massive walls, probably cold and drafty, and you've got Elias, the King's Shadow. His name itself is telling, right? Always there, always watching, the ultimate protector. But your sources mentioned the king wasn't exactly a saint, more like a brute at times. What's the vibe like in this castle?
Right from the start, you sense this tension, right? The castle is described as this sort of pressure cooker of secrets. Elias, he's always vigilant, constantly scanning for threats. And the queen, well, she's this elegant figure gliding through the halls. But there's something off about her, an underlying unease that Elias picks up on.
I noticed that too. Like on the surface, she's performing her duties, but there's this dissonance between her actions and the growing tension in the castle. And then there's the detail about the king being absent.
Yes. And instead of the king, there's laughter coming from his bedchamber. It's almost lighthearted, but there's something unsettling about it, especially considering the king's not there.
Right. It's such a violation. This is the king's most private space, and it's being used for, well, you can guess what. For Elias, whose entire life is about protecting the king, it must have been a huge shock.
Exactly. And this is where Elias's instinct takes over. He's drawn towards this violation, following the queen, blending into the shadows, almost like a ghost.
I love that imagery, the silken trail of her dress and Elias melting into the tapestries. It's like he's a predator, but in reverse, almost like he's being hunted by what he might uncover.
And what he uncovers confirms his suspicions. He overhears the queen talking to a stranger. At first, it's all subtle and suggestive, but then her tone changes. It's like she's using her words as a weapon, promising power, a new dawn.
And the stranger's response, "Oh man, tonight, my queen, you shall see a new dawn." Chilling stuff. It's clear this isn't just a fling. It's a calculated move to grab power. But what really stood out to me was the poison wine.
Oh yeah, that detail. It's so symbolic, isn't it? The queen brings the wine herself, supposedly for the king, but it's untouched.
Right, and the way it's described, the crimson liquid in the silver goblet and that line, the unmistakable tang of wormroot poison clinging to the metal, it's so visceral. It makes you realize how cold-blooded she is.
Absolutely. There's no passion in this betrayal. It's calculated, premeditated, and it forces Elias's hand. Can't just stand by and watch this unfold. In the source material, they describe his loyalty as something that's etched upon his soul.
It's like his very being, right?
Exactly. But witnessing this betrayal, it creates this internal conflict in him. He's torn between his duty and what he knows is right. So sword drawn, he bursts into the room.
It's like a dam breaking, all that tension finally exploding. What was the stranger's reaction? I can't remember.
Not fear, it was realization. As soon as he sees Elias, he knows he's been caught. And the queen, she tries to play it off. Elias, you misunderstand. Like, seriously.
Oh, please. But it doesn't work, obviously. Things escalate quickly, right?
Oh, yeah. The stranger goes for a hidden dagger, tries to take Elias out. They struggle. Elias's sword snaps. A shard goes into his arm. It's brutal. But even injured, he manages to tackle the stranger, and that's when he spots it, the tinderbox under the bed hangings.
Oh my gosh, that detail. The queen screams, "You fool, you'll kill us all." It wasn't about the fight, it was about the fire. She was going to burn everything down, eliminate the evidence, and get rid of Elias in the process.
It's chilling, isn't it? The poison, the fire, it was all part of her plan. And in that moment, Elias realizes the depth of her treachery.
It's a no-win situation, isn't it? He's trapped, injured, facing down two people who are willing to kill.
And yet, he makes a choice. Instead of trying to save himself, he kicks the tinderbox into the hangings. His final act is to protect the king, even if it means sacrificing himself.
The way that scene is described, it's incredible. The flames erupt, hungry flames roaring to life, the room bathed in the flickering orange of betrayal. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it's intense. And even as the fire spreads, Elias continues to fight, preventing the queen's lover from escaping. It's chaos, beams groaning, the queen's final scream. It's like a descent into hell, fueled by loyalty and sacrifice.
And then silence. Just the fire consuming everything. It's a tragic end, but in a way there's a sense of fulfillment. Elias died holding his oath. Like your source says, the king's shadow falls where it must, even if it consumed him too.
Powerful line, right? But it raises a big question. Where does true loyalty lie? Is it blind obedience, or is it about doing what's right, even if it means defying the person you're sworn to protect?
It makes you think, doesn't it? Elias was loyal to the king, but the real threat was the queen. Maybe true protection sometimes requires taking a stand against authority.
It's a complex issue, and it shows how power can corrupt. The queen was so blinded by ambition that she was willing to betray everything. And Elias, he paid the ultimate price for his loyalty. What a heavy story.
So heavy. But let's move on to our second story from True Kill, Frozen Tableau. We meet Victor, a famous ice sculptor. Your sources describe him as a master, creating these incredible installations that people adore.
Yeah, he was a celebrity, right?
Yeah.
The descriptions really capture that sense of artistry and public admiration. But there's a sinister undercurrent, a hidden truth behind his success.
It's all about appearances, right?
Exactly. And that's what makes it so disturbing. There's this one detail about a life-size figure trapped in ice, limbs contorted, like in an unsettling dance, and those frozen eyes reflecting real terror. That's when you realize that Victor's true medium is death.
It's such a messed up juxtaposition. Beauty and horror, all wrapped up in one. The way your sources explain it, it started out practical. He needed to dispose of a body.
Almost like, well, I have all this ice, what do I do?
Exactly. But then it morphs into something else, this morbid art form. His studio becomes a freezer. His tools become instruments of death. And he's not just hiding bodies, he's incorporating them into his work.
The level of detail is chilling. Posing the victims, the freezing process, everything is so meticulously planned. And the fact that these sculptures were displayed publicly, people admiring them, unaware of the horror they contained, it's terrifying.
Then there's his so-called masterpiece, The Anguished Muse. He planned to kill a rival artist and encase him in ice, turning murder into performance art. This wasn't just about hiding a body, it was about eliminating competition and making a statement.
And the scale of this piece, it was huge, way bigger than anything he'd done before. It's like his ambition grew alongside his madness. And then there's the detail about the hidden pumps, the ice-cold liquid flooding the sculpture, so grotesque.
It was like he was drowning his victim in his art, literally. And he was so sure of his success, ready for the applause, the accolades.
But then the twist. He feels the liquid pooling around his feet, sees the crack in the ice, and hears that horrible, monstrous shriek of ice splitting. It's like the world is collapsing around him.
His perfect plan shattered. He becomes trapped in his own creation, the hunter becoming the hunted. The irony is so thick you could cut it with an ice pick.
It's poetic justice, in a really dark way. He spent his life encasing others in ice, and in the end, that's how he died. Frozen in a grotesque, desperate pose, surrounded by his tools. And the newscasters calling it poetic justice, it just adds another layer to the whole thing.
It's chilling. Victor's story is a reminder that darkness can hide anywhere, even in something as beautiful as art. And it makes you think about how easily we can be fooled by appearances.
Yeah, it's a cautionary tale. What resonated most with you from these stories?
I think the internal struggles, Elias's battle with loyalty and Victor's descent into madness, they're both so compelling. What about you?
It's the duality of it all. The contrast between beauty and horror, the way appearances can deceive. It's unsettling but fascinating.
Agreed. These stories from True Kill are like peering into the dark side of human nature. Orlando Madsbrine really knows how to capture the unsettling side of things. If you're into these kinds of stories, be sure to check out the book True Kill. We're just scratching the surface here.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us on True Assassins for this deep dive into these true crime-inspired mysteries. We've only just begun to explore the world of assassins and hitmen. And remember, every shadow holds a secret. Every blade tells a story.
True that. Rate and follow True Assassins for more addictive cloak and dagger stories. We'll be back soon with more thrilling tales from the shadows. What other kinds of true crime stories are you interested in? Let us know. We might just cover them in our next deep dive.